I have such a hard time with somebody hanging all of their politics on like, I want to be able to say the R word. I'm like, not even taxes?
Did woke go too far?
It might be one of the most overused words of the last decade.
Wokery is profoundly authoritarian.
That woke shit's out the window.
I've noticed people are saying the R word again.
Retard comes flying out of these kids' mouths.
5 years ago, people were being crucified for saying retard.
Claude, what is the R word?
Retard.
And pronouns in emails no longer feel so obligatory.
Starting off with AOC, she has apparently removed pronouns from her X profile.
Sadiq Khan removing pronouns from his Twitter bio.
Does a blatantly cishet 30-year-old white woman need to have she, her in her Instagram bio?
Lately, it feels like we're being a little less careful about what we say and who we might offend, both on the right and now maybe also on the left. So where are we with language policing? And are we done being politically correct? To find out, I talked to my friends. Writer and culture critic Aminatou Sow and New York Magazine writer Brock Colyar. Hi, thank you so much for being here with me. We're going to talk about these shifts that feel like they're happening specifically around language and political correctness, things that some people might also call woke or not woke. And so to start, I wanted to play a game where I'm going to say a word, and you guys are going to tell me if it is alive, dying, or dead.
Sounds great.
Let's do it.
Okay. Problematic.
Dead.
Should die. Should die. But it's around. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's around, but it should die.
Triggered.
That one's going to come back. It's going to come back, but it's dead.
I still see quite a bit of that, especially on the internet, which is really disturbing because it's like trigger warning, and then here's a video of like some horrifically violent thing. Like the word does not work.
It's
like,
why I love it. I'm just like, thank you for triggering me with the trigger.
Yes.
It's like the reaction came 10 seconds before. So I love it.
Microaggression.
Dead.
Dead.
Okay. Safe space.
Dead.
Dead.
Folks with an X.
Dead.
Never alive.
Which, I mean, that one was ridiculous. I mean, talk about a ridiculous, like that really makes me so mad.
Folks
like, it
with
makes
an
me,
X.
because I know people who have like dutifully and earnestly
folks.
used that. And it's like, oh my gosh.
What about Latinx?
I mean, I think that one's difficult because I think for a lot of Latin people or Latin queer people, it feels good. And for some of them, it actually doesn't. And they prefer. And I think it can sometimes feel like a Western intervention onto them. Mm-hmm. I think that one's complicated. I think it should still be, like, I think people use it.
It can live if it wants to?
Yes.
Okay.
This is the one that will get me canceled. I hate Latinx. Mm-hmm. And it's very much, and I talk about this a lot with like immigrant friends. It's very much like a diaspora war thing for me, where I was like, it's like interesting that you need a word to signal like where you are from. So I don't like it. I would say most of the people that I know don't like it either. And it's just like imprecise to me. I'm just like, what are we talking about here?
Okay, so since we're going to talk about language, I want to start by being on the same page about the language we're using. So when you hear the term politically correct, what comes to mind for you? What does that mean for you? And is it the same thing as woke? Are we talking about the same thing?
I think that's what I was going to say. When I hear politically correct, I kind of hate the word woke, but I do think that woke has almost supplanted politically correct as the thing we're talking about when we're talking about this stuff. But I think, I would say that.
Like woke obviously has had a lot of different transitions as a word and who uses it and how and to mean what. And I would say that like I felt like seemed like a positive thing to be woke 5 years ago, and now it doesn't feel that way anymore. And I'm curious, have you noticed a shift, and where are you noticing it?
Have you noticed a shift?
Yeah, I mean, I think when I'm trying to describe my politics to people, I often say that I have some anti-woke sensibilities. And by saying that, I think what I'm often trying to do is distance myself from the woke of 5 years ago, this kind of way too earnest, super PC, kind of cringe, resistance-y culture, whose politics I mostly support, but the way that it's carried out is cringe to me. Yeah, I think cringe is the best word.
What about you, Amina?
Yeah, cringe is a really good word. Thank you to the young people for that one. I do think that language moves very fast. And I think that sometimes too, when I hear people use certain words, all it does is like carbon date them for me. So like if somebody says the word PC, I'm like, got it. Like you're 1990 and before person, we love that last century, you know? And if you're like a different kind of person and you say woke, I'm like, great, you're a new century person, but do the words mean the same things to us? And that's not always
And
apparent.
does it go further than time? Like if a white person says to you, I'm woke, what do you think of that?
I mean, I'm laughing. I am always like, it has been ridiculous since day one. I just want to be so clear about that for me. Because I don't know what they're saying. Like I was like, are you saying that I should trust you? Or are you saying that you are considerate about people, which is not what woke has meant in the Black community, at least, where it originated from. So I've never known what that means. It's always just like it's very much like the dad from Get Out, you know?
I would have voted for Obama for a third term if I could. Best president in my lifetime, hands down.
Cool. I don't know what that means, you know? So, and then also now you have people on the right also like using this word woke to mean something completely different than what I think a mainstream Democrat is saying. So it is like very confusing to me.
But I also feel like there is something, and it does have to do with age, but I feel like there's something generationally that is happening that is interesting in terms of how people think about sort of the superficial signaling of their politics that is changing. And it's kind of what I want to talk about. I want to know if you guys agree that there's like something happened during Trump's first administration where people were like, this is not us. Like whatever this man's values are, we need to prove that it's not the same as the values of white progressives. And so we're going to knit pussy hats, and we're like, white people are going to do crazy things like read books about anti-racism, and they're going to post black squares on Instagram, and it's all going to be about
you're triggering so many bad memories right now.
And it's all going to be about signaling in a very I think at the time a very like well-intentioned like cri de coeur, passionate way that like Trump's values were not the same as many Americans' values, and like how could we draw those distinctions? And then I think maybe during the Biden administration, a lot of the things that signaled that became part of the institutions. Like you had to put your like HRifying pronouns and the ways in which universities were grappling with all of this. And I would say maybe now, because so much of the signaling has been institutionalized, there's a rebellion against that from both sides. Do you guys see that?
I agree with that, but I do think like that black square moment, I think we're like that still happens. Like we still get stuck in these virtue signaling woke social media cycles where it's like any issue that comes up, you know, there's this pressure to post, and then you post these infographics, and then all of a sudden there's a realization 2 months into whatever conflict it is that those aren't doing anything. So then we start to get mad at people who are only posting the infographics, and then it stops. And then the next time a big issue comes up, we do it all again. Like it just feels like monotonous.
No, I agree with that. Like I remember the Black Square Day so well because I didn't know what it was. And then one day I woke up and it was just, you know, and I was like, great, now you've told me exactly who I need to unfollow on this feed. You know, like I'm like, I don't need, this is so silly. It's like you're posting a picture because you don't know how to say like, I don't have racist values. You know, like I'm like, what's
for anyone
so
who doesn't
about
remember Black
that?
Square, can you remind us what Black Square is?
Yeah, the Black Squares were, what was that in protest? Was it George Floyd, maybe?
Yeah, it was the summer of 2020.
Yes, the summer of the Troubles.
Around the time of the Imagine video.
Right, the summer of the Troubles.
Right, the Imagine video.
So to be fair, it was COVID. Like a lot of things were happening, right? You have George Floyd getting killed. You have a lot of a lot of other protests that are happening, like around trans issues. But I think the Black Square specifically was to signal that you were not a racist person, what a ridiculous way to signal that, you know?
Brock, how much do you think of this culture comes out of the internet specifically and is created on the internet?
I think it's almost like when we were trying to define woke earlier, I think when I'm thinking about what that means, everything I'm thinking about is happening on the internet, you know? Also, I think to what you were just saying, like thinking about that Black Square moment, like it seems silly in retrospect, but it felt very serious at the time.
And not to some, me.
You know, I remember getting confronted by a coworker, like, I haven't seen you post yet. And, and
But
that we
post
had
in
to have
general or post the black square?
that square. And then we had to have a conversation. And that was really difficult at the time. Like it was really intense,
Yeah.
I also think what you were saying about the Biden years, like, I think the reason it feels like we're having this kind of backlash to this culture right now is because of the institutionalization of it in our workplaces and on campuses. And like, I don't think even good liberal people feel like the anti-racist training that they're doing in their office is helping anyone. I think that there are even people who respect people's pronouns and believe in non-binary identity or whatever. I don't think that they think that putting it in their signature is helping anyone.
Yeah.
And I think they're rolling their eyes and laughing about it in private.
Yes. I want to know a little bit more like the context of where you each come to this from. Brock, for you, I think Trump being elected was your first semester of college, and you had grown up in Tennessee. So how did you think about these things before coming to college, and like how did it change?
I mean, I grew up in rural Tennessee, and so was surrounded by Trump voters at the time. So there was, and who, pretty outwardly bigoted in, a fairly rural Tennessee area. And arriving on campus in the heat of the 2016 election was, it was just crazy. Like, and for me personally, having finally gotten to a more liberal place, yes, I could start experimenting with the way I looked, and non-binary identity was really kind of bubbling up. And so I started using they, them pronouns, and then pronouns became the big conversation on campus. I mean, you couldn't walk into a classroom without the first day starting with a pronoun go-around, as they say, going around the circle and saying, "Hi, I'm Brock, and I'm from Tennessee, and I use they, them pronouns." Like, it really exploded in that moment. Like, and I was for the first time also, as someone who dreamed of going to a liberal place, confronting other problems within the left, suddenly finding myself amongst like-minded people, but also discovering, oh, we don't think the same way about all these topics. And there's going to be pushback on voting for Hillary Clinton or, any number of things.
Yeah, what were examples of that?
Yeah, I think who you voted for in the primaries was such a litmus test at the time. The big debate at Northwestern at the time was a professor had invited someone who worked for ICE to come speak to a classroom. There was a huge protest over that because we were trying to figure out, how open we wanted our dialogues. Was it all, was it okay to be in dialogue with someone like that?
And then, you grew up, I think you speak 5 languages, is that right?
Something like that, yeah.
You grew up in a lot of different places, and then you came to America for college.
Yeah,
what was that experience like?
I went to an American high school in Nigeria that was very conservative, like run by missionaries, but American curriculums. And then I went to my first experience of being in America was I went to college at University of Texas at Austin. And Austin is, I would say, a very liberal, woke 1.0, woke 2.0 kind of place. But you're still in Texas, So, and I graduated high school at the beginning of the Iraq War. So my campus time was very much like a war. It was Middle Eastern Studies major. So, that conversation's still going on. But I think watching George Bush just like kind of sweep through office and be this kind of like celebrated like buffoon was was a big system shock to me. And I think that's like my defining political heartbreak. Yeah. But to the point about, like language and stuff, I think that being kind of shaped in that like late 90s, like PC madness was, I was very woke to that because I was like, this is not working. It is so not working.
Yeah.
If you're just like a regular, like not addicted to social media person who is just trying to get through the workday, of course you're upset that they're making you do all this like signaling that you're not interested in doing at the place that you come to conduct capitalism to like pay your bills. Like, who cares about this stuff? And so it's very, it's like a very intense feeling.
Yeah. That's actually where I wanted to go next. The comedian Mark Maron made this joke. I'm going to paraphrase it, but basically, like, did progressives annoy people into fascism? I mean,
it's possible. It's very possible.
And Brock, you've done so much reporting on like the MAGA right youth movement, and I'm curious what you're seeing there.
Yeah, I mean, when I wrote a cover story for New York Magazine last year, where I went to the inauguration and hung out with, kind of the new right, young, upwardly mobile, kind of good-looking, influencery conservatives. And I mean, language policing was the thing that they brought up over and over and over again. They wanted the freedom to say the R word or the F word, or, this was their main concern. They wanted to.
Did you find that to be sincere? Like, did you find it to be very sincere?
I don't. There is a bit of a pose to it. It's funny. I think I wrote in the piece, some of them seemed very earnest about it, and some of them, it was performative. They were kind of doing it for the bit. But I think largely they really felt that, and something that came up over and over and over again when I was asking them to explain why they won, why they thought they won, they said, we talk like normal people. They just kept calling themselves normal. We're normal. We talk like normal people. And I mean, the truth is, they were not always talking like normal people. They were making really messed up and cruel jokes. But I do think that they were onto something. I think that's also the problem with so much of this woke language stuff. I think to the average American, it's read as like elite and academic. It's the stuff of campuses and intellectuals. And that's a turnoff.
I think there's also like being transgressive, feeling like you're being transgressive is gleeful. Like it's a place of joy. And I think that like some of these people on the right are like this, we can rebel against this in a way that is powerful. Do you think that's part of what's going on, or is it like is pure just?
Oh, I think it's why I asked you whether you thought it was sincere or not, because I have such a hard time with somebody hanging all of their politics on like, I want to be able to say the R word. I'm like, not even taxes? Like, this is what you're like, this is it? This is the pinnacle of what you care about feels like particularly lazy to me. And I do think that it's about being transgressive. And I think that it's also about being cruel. I think that it's something that I think about a lot. It's like there's language that I am asked to use that I find goofy sometimes. And I always ask myself, I'm like, does it cost me anything to do something nice for someone else? And if it doesn't cost me anything, who cares? You know what I mean? Like
I think people just don't enjoy like being told what to do.
Well, but I guess like I'm not really. It's not. I don't think that we're always being told what to do, but some of this is just like basic politeness to me. Like before we started this interview, your producer asked me like how I would like to be referred to as, like ID'd. I was like, that's great. That's like a professional courtesy. People mispronounce my name all the time. It's fine to do that. So if somebody is like, please call me by these pronouns, and they're asking you that like earnestly, I was like, it doesn't cost me anything to do that for someone. And so when I find this like kind of like wanton cruelty being the driving force, because again, things are like everything exists in a context. I think that what I find like particularly grating about the like, I want to be able to use the R word, I want to call women bitches, and I want to call people the N word, like whatever. Is I'm like, why do you want to do that? Like, why is it so important to you? What is so important about being able to say that to someone who is telling you they don't want to hear that?
At the same time, though, I do think I'm coming from I'm 28 and I live in Brooklyn and I'm surrounded by like card-carrying DSA members, but
including one right here.
I will say, I do think, most people are willing to be polite, but so much of this has gotten so fraught on the example of pronouns, for example, because people do not allow people to learn. People do not give them the grace to try and figure out how to get these things right. I mean, people are militant about this stuff and will like bite their professor's head off over, a misgendering situation. And that makes it really hard to move forward, you know?
I know, but that's interesting because that, again, to me is I'm like, I hear you and I agree with you. Like, I've been in those meetings. Like, you know, I'm like, I'm a member of the co-op. I'm a member of the, like, I go to the meetings where the people are militant. And at the same time, I'm just like, no one's killing anybody, you know? Like, there is like a fragility, like, built in on both sides of this conversation where I'm like, wow, like, okay, if somebody says, call me this, you do it. Like, we don't have to have like a 10-hour-long fight over the stuff, or you can just smile and move on. I think we can agree that that's like very silly. It's like somebody yelled at you one time in college, like that doesn't have any power over you. And then now I have to live the consequences of, you know, like fascism is knocking at the door because of that. That's a big leap.
It is a big leap, but again, I think people just don't like being told what to do. And that's like a very...
Yeah, but welcome to society. Like, the government tells you what to do, you know? Like, and also, it's sometimes, like, I guess I want to backtrack. To me, it's not about being told what to do. It's like, we have, like, basic rules of decorum.
I guess my problem is also, while the left is wrapped up in these debates about decorum and, like, politeness, the right's reaction to this is to actually dismantle things, right? Like the things that we were doing in college, you could not do on a camp. You know, women's studies have been, you know, destroyed. Queer studies, you know, Middle Eastern programs, like protesting, like they reacted. We're having these silly little debates about that, and they're taking these big actions. That's sometimes my problem with the pronoun discourse too. Like the left, the young queer people spent so much time enforcing all of this pronoun stuff, and what energy was wasted. You know, why weren't we talking about healthcare or bathrooms or something that was not as...
I don't disagree with that.
And you were just speaking at a university a few weeks ago on these subjects. Do you feel like it's changed on campuses now?
This was at a Southern university, and a very liberal university in the South, an artsy school on a mountain. And yes, the change was huge. These students were telling me, you know, previously they felt like the school was 90% liberal kids and maybe 10% conservatives. And they were estimating it was more 60-40. Wow. They said that Trump was elected. All of a sudden, you know, these frat houses were, you know, hotbeds of the R word and all these things that we're talking about. They said the dress changed on campus. Like all of a sudden, all these girls and boys are in salmon-colored like button-ups. Like the culture at this very liberal school had gotten so much more conservative. They said they had about 9 kids who participated in, it's a fairly small school, but only 9 kids who participated in the pro-Palestine protests.
Wow. That's really interesting. And do you think that's because, like, youth movements are shifting? Are just the signifiers shifting, or is like the youth shifting to the right?
I think, I mean, the numbers, I think the media talks a lot about the youth shifting to the right. I don't think that's what's happening. I think that the youth are just shifting away from both parties and don't really want to be aligned with either institutionally. And that makes their politics really funny and hard to map onto MAGA or woke.
There's Steven Pinker came up with this concept called the euphemism treadmill that is basically the idea that like we are always going to replace a word that has stigma attached to it with another word because the word is just going to get too loaded. Like the R word, for example, was the polite replacement for the word idiot. And we're just never going to be able to outrun the stigma because the word's always going to catch it. Do you guys think that there is a way off that treadmill, or is this just a thing that happens with language?
I just think that's what happens every generation. I think queer stuff is really interesting about this. Like, obviously, queer is the word that we're using right now to kind of stand in for all LGBTQ plus people. But it was not always that way, though it was very popular in the 90s. And a lot of older gays and lesbians today are very uncomfortable with the word. And I just think it changes it will continue to change. And that's also why you can't quite police this stuff because it's so fluid and flexible.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we're not going to make new words. So we are going to recycle all the same words. I was talking to somebody in their like 80s recently, and I used the word horny, and he got so offended. He was like, your generation loves to use that word. And I was like, I have never had a reaction to this word before. And it was very instructive and very funny.
But do you think that there's a way off the treadmill? Like, do you think language is always just gonna...
I think that language is always going to do this because it's like the political mood shifts. People reclaim words, I think, a lot. And I think particularly like we're in an era of people taking, words that meant bad things or were replacement for something that was bad and really bringing those back to the core. And we're seeing real generational anxieties about that. And I don't know, like as a words person, I love all of it. I was like, I just love to see how like language is formed and how we do that. And I think you could be scared by it or you could be really intrigued and see what we do with the language.
Yeah. Then sometimes I get confused. I mean, like, as a white woman, let me make this about me for a second. As a white woman.
Is this your coming out? I love it.
No, but like, as an editor also, I'm like, that we're constantly making lists of people to do things. And I have to be like, we've only put white people on this list. We need some people who are... And then I don't know what to say because I've heard from a lot of people that person of color feels so corporate and everyone's a color. But I'm like, so you have to add some people who are not white, but then that centers whiteness. And like, it actually comes out of a genuine desire to be like, what is the word that means what I want it to mean and is the most respectful?
Right, but at the end of the day,
confused.
also, it's like, just do the thing. You know what I mean?
Yes, totally.
I hear this... Like in the summer of 2020, I will never forget, the summer of the Troubles, I was on a call and somebody said, they used the word BIPOC, which I had seen written, but I had never encountered before.
Out loud.
And I'm a fairly online person, and I had seen it, but I guess like my brain had registered that it meant something else. And so, and I was like, wait, who's the BIPOC on the call? And this woman was like, oh, you. And I was like, oh, I'm not bisexual, but thank you so much for thinking that about me. Like I really thought it meant bisexual person of color. And I was like, that is so niche, but like, I love that for you guys that you've done that. And she was like, no, it means like Black, indigenous, person of color. And I was like, oh, me? I was like, I'm just Black. I just identify, like, I don't need this thing. But I remember it made me laugh so hard because I was like, this is not like God bless, whatever you guys are doing over there. And again, it's like, and then when I was really thinking about that call, I was like, this is somebody that I've worked with for so many years who's always like, how do I get more Black people to be involved? And then never does. I'm like, just do it. At this point, you're talking so much about like, how can you do it? What's the list called? What's the thing? And I was like, where's the results?
Right.
If you're still not doing it, like it doesn't, this thing doesn't matter.
Totally. Intent matters so much more than language. Yeah. But language is how we communicate. Language is important also. We are all three writers who care about it.
Right, and so but I think that showing curiosity and asking questions about it is better than being definitive. So even in a place where it's like if somebody says to me like, what do you identify as? That is automatically like a easier, like I think so much about like trans friends who have corrected my like identification of their like pronouns. And it was never done in an aggressive way. It was always like, thanks. Yeah. Like actually like this is the pronoun I like, and then you move on. And I think about that a lot in this debate where sometimes I'm like, yeah, you said someone's pronouns wrong and they have now told you how to say it. You don't have to like wallow in shame. You say, thank you for telling me that. And then we both, you like keep it kind of pushing.
If the conversation goes that way.
No, if the conversation goes that way. But I think a lot of times the conversation's not going that way because it's not an invitation, like and on both sides. Like there's so much like shame and self-loathing. And it's like, well, no, let's be correct and let's move on. Let's have a dynamic conversation about it.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know. Thinking about all this, like I don't support the kind of like loose and free, say whatever you want cruelty of the young Trumpers.
Yeah.
But I do think that once you start parsing what people how we say all of these things, like it has a chilling effect. And like, I don't know if the young people I know are also a good sample size to talk about this, but like, I mean, it feels like more fraught and policey than ever in my social circles. There's like a slight fascistic thing about the way of what we're doing. Like, can you say you didn't like this movie? Can you say that you like Lana Del Rey? Oh, but wait, she dated a cop a couple years ago. Like, can you like her? And she has trad wife aesthetics. Like, all sharing on Instagram, like who exactly you should rank in the New York elections. And if you don't rank it exactly that way, then get out of this circle. When I wrote about the Cruel Kids for New York Mag, at the end of the piece, I kind of copped to some of this because I felt that I was becoming vaguely more anti-woke, and I admitted to making bad jokes and stuff. And I mean, the way I felt socially ostracized among my friends for just admitting that, I thought it would be relatable to people. You know, sometimes we do these, say these bad things in private, but I don't know, among my social circles, there was just a huge backlash to that. Like I don't know. In some corners of the world, I think woke is more alive than ever, and it's getting more intense.
Oh, it's coming
and that's
back.
how they're transgressing.
It's definitely coming back.
That's really interesting. Okay, so it's sort of like these two completely different spheres then that you navigate between both when you're reporting on the MAGA right youth movements and when you're moving through Brooklyn. Like it's two completely different worlds. Is that right?
Yes. And I would say pretty comfortably that having open debate amongst the young conservative influencers I know is much easier than doing it in Brooklyn.
That's so interesting. Okay, so I was going to move to like, is woke over? Are we done being politically correct?
No, woke is coming back. Woke is always coming back. It just comes back in a new, like, it's like new clothing,
new iteration.
Whatever. And also new
for a new generation.
Yeah, and also new leaders of the woke. You know what I mean? I'm just like something's definitely brewing. So I'm curious to see what it's going to look like, what it's going to feel like. But I'm really like ingesting this thing that you've said too about like the opinions that you're allowed to have online and how much it's like shaping all of us. Like I know that for me, it shapes my writing a lot and it drives me nuts when I'm like, this is not from a place of honesty. This is from a place of like not wanting to get yelled at, you know, or whatever. So like that feels like genuinely like palpable. But yeah, I think like woke is on its way back, you know? Like we have a socialist mayor. Like it's gonna look.
I do think it's on its way back though. I also find that there's a certain corner of the internet that is always insisting that it was like never dead and that it's alive. And I find that a bit
I mean, I feel like that's like funny.
Like look what's happening to this country right now. Like these policies have lost and maybe it shouldn't come back in the same.
And it's interesting because, I mean, I think any person that we could ask these questions to would have their own very specific answers that might be completely different. And that's a really interesting thing about this kind of conversation because you're like, this is what's happening in Brooklyn, but you're also describing this formerly liberal college campus where things look a lot different than they did a few years ago. And so I think we live in such like atomized little bubbles. And when we're talking about social movements, so many different contradictory things can be happening at the same time.
I know, but also there's been such a big switch. It's like when I think about the fact that like it's like football is now a left thing and like family I was like, yeah, it's like all the gays are married. Like we're watching the Super Bowl, whatever. And on the right, they're doing like no vaccines, the weird milks, I'm just like, what is, like the weird like kinks with the Republican husbands? I was like, this is very, it's all very weird to observe.
I mean, look at who people are listening to. I wrote a profile of Candace Owens in December and I mean, like and sometimes I think that like politics are heading in like her or like Joe Rogan's direction.
Yeah.
Like she's such a, pro-Palestine, but super anti-trans, but like against the war.
Started as a Vogue intern, like it's
completely
all very
mixed
weird.
up. And her audience is young and it's a lot of women and it's a lot of women who I think we're heading in those directions.
Okay. So just to end, I want to play a game. And the three of us are going to be the language police. And we are going to get to ban a word. And I'll go first. For me, I was at the supermarket and I heard a woman say to her boyfriend, honey, should we get some cados? And she meant avocados, and that is banned. No one can say cados for avocados.
Yeah, like the food girls generally should be banned. The white women that make up the backbone of the food writing industry, I think they all need to go.
French. The baby talk.
The baby talk. The like the AOs and the
what does AOs mean?
Mayo.
Ew.
And the shallots. And I was like banned. Banned. What happens when bad writers have too many words to give people?
Yeah.
No, thank you.
It's just started happening, but I'm already done with the maxing. Looks maxing or whatever. You can add any word onto maxing.
Yeah.
And that's already completely annoying to me.
It was too easy and it went too fast.
It's too much. I want to ban straight people using partner when they mean husband or wife. I'm just like, I don't like this signaling of your politics.
I hate that.
I really hate it because it's very sinister, actually.
They're hiding. They're doing some queer
I'm like,
for
you're
clout.
literally participating in the most hetero heteronormative institution a person can participate in, and you don't get to rebrand
You're hiding it.
Yeah.
You just don't get to rebrand it. I was like, partner is out.
This always bugged me as a queer person, and I would like anytime someone would say partner, I'd be like, oh cool, they're gay, and then I'd be like, no, they're just an ally.
No, now when somebody says partner to me, I was like, this says straight person.
Now I'm like
fully.
Now it actually is useful because I'm like, oh, you're straight, cool, you're a straight person who says partner. No gay people say that anymore. Thank you both so much for being here with me today in this
delight.
beautiful loft.
Thank you for having us.